some more breaking news. Let's get right to Woj. Woj, give it to us. I understand you got the latest on Tyrese Maxey now.
Brian, Tyrese Maxey has agreed in principle, I'm told, to a 5-year, $204 million max contract extension. He and his agent, Rich Paul of Clutch Sports, finalize those details. They can make that official once the free agency signing moratorium ends on Saturday. And essentially, Tyrese Maxey did not take that extension last year to allow the Sixers to be able to have a max salary slot to add a third star this offseason, and that's just what they were able to do. Paul George committing on his 4-year, $212 million deal last night. And by Maxey not taking his extension last year, that cleared the way to add Paul George. And Maxey, certainly one of the dynamic young players in all the NBA, had a breakout season last year for the Sixers, averaging over 25 points a game, nearly 30 in the playoffs. And now Tyrese Maxey, Joel Embiid, and of course Paul George now. Those three make up perhaps maybe the preeminent big three headed into next season.
Now, of course, you broke other news. That was at 3:30 this morning as you talked about Paul George now signing with the Philadelphia 76ers. Tell us, what was it that ended up ultimately making Paul George sign with Philly as opposed to staying in L.A.?
Well, Brian, what ultimately opened the door to the Sixers was the fact that L.A. did not go to a fourth year on their offer in the negotiations that have been ongoing for months between Paul George and the Clippers. And so their restraint on trying to stay to a 3-year deal just below the max, essentially the same deal Kawhi Leonard did, ultimately opened the door for Philadelphia to be able to make its case to Paul George. Daryl Morey had been pursuing, a star player to pair with Maxey, with Joel Embiid, and now that ends up being Paul George, who comes back to the Eastern Conference after having started his career in Indiana with the Pacers, obviously going on to Oklahoma City, and then 5 years in L.A. With the Clippers. But Paul George, really embracing the challenge of coming to Philly, to certainly a ferocious sports town and a hungry NBA town for an NBA championship. Hasn't happened there since 1983. This might be Philly's best chance at winning one with the arrival of Paul George on a 4-year, $212 million deal.
Yeah, they certainly went out big game hunting, and they got the biggest fish on the free agency market. All right, Wendy joins us as we bring in the rest of our crew. Tim Bontemps here, Alan Hahn here as well. Wendy, give us some more perspectives on this. What more can you add to what PG-13 means going to Philly? What does this all mean here when we talk about the total landscape?
Well, Daryl Morey, the president of the 76ers, he's made probably about 100 transactions since he got that job in 2020. But the first move that he made was to draft Tyrese Maxey with the 21st pick in that draft. That was a hard draft because it had been during the pandemic. And hitting that draft pick brought us to today. Not just hitting an all-star in the 20s as where Tyrese Maxey was hit, but hitting a player that makes a salary that enabled them to open this up. We're seeing teams all across the league struggle with dealing with these new apron rules that squeeze teams in their ability to spend and stack stars together. That's why Paul George was available, because the Clippers just couldn't do it under the new rules. Tyrese Maxey's development into an all-star player to become a very attractive draw to a player like Paul George and to keep Joel Embiid happy and stable in Philadelphia is enormous. So I can't understate the importance of Maxey and the way the Sixers and Maxey have played it. That opened the window for this move. Now, this all worked out incredibly well because the Sixers needed to sign a max player at this time in this moment. And there was only one true max player on the market. Paul George needed a max contract with a contending team. There was only one of those that really fit the bill at the end of the day. There was only one place that had the space to give him this, And so you get this marriage that ends up working out beautifully into bringing 3 All-Stars together.
They got that pick because Mike Muscala hit a meaningless 3 in the bubble to win a game for the Thunder that kept that pick from being in the top 20 where it would have gone away from Philly to being the 21st pick and them getting it. So they even needed that to just get Tyrese Maxey in the first place. And then on top of that, after all this time, Markelle Fultz, Ben Simmons, James Harden, trying to find all these guys to partner with Joel Embiid, they draft this kid who's a ray of sunshine that everybody in Philly loves to be around all the time, has developed into a supernova player. We saw him take over the Garden in Game 5 of that series. And Joel Embiid absolutely loves this kid and loves playing with him. And all the things that are happening in Philly right now is because they got Tyrese Maxey and they had that 1-2 punch. If they didn't draft him, we're probably talking about Joel Embiid playing somewhere else. Like, that's how significant a thing it is. So the fact that he didn't take the extension last summer, he played ball to let them be able to get this guy, it all comes back to Tyrese Maxey being there as the real, true co-star Joel Embiid has always needed. Because of that, they've now got a third one.
So give me your take on this.
I was going to say it wasn't really a meaningless shot, was it? It was a very meaningful shot.
One, yeah.
Sixers history at least, right? And what it also did too, and I know you guys both, Windy and TB, you both have made reference to this, but last year when the Sixers moved on from James Harden, we talked a lot about that. Yeah. How big of a move is that? Joel Embiid, will he be happy about that? They make this move. They bring the star in. It doesn't work out. They have a terrible playoff series in the second round when they lost to Boston. And then they're going to break that up and start all over again. But it was the emergence of Tyrese Maxey. It was the development of him that they looked at and said, you know what, I think we've got something here. Because he couldn't shine with James there. We saw him a lot of times deferring 2 years ago. When they gave him the ball this year, it unlocked everything. And then it did open up so much. So I love that Windy pointed that out. I love the background you have on that as well, TV, about this, how these little steps that you don't even pay attention to 2, 3, 4 years down the road turn into an opportunity. And that's now this opportunity to get a player like this and to finally, after all these years, give the Sixers the greatest opportunity to win a championship.
You know, listen, I'm old school, so I remember, was it 83 when they won it all? And when they made that move, and they went and got Moses Malone, it was like, whoa, this is the one that takes them over the top.
And by the way, that was a team that had gotten to the finals, obviously, but had run up against it a bunch and not won, right? And they go and do that, and then they win. Obviously, they got a lot of work to do to win. They still got to fill out the roster. They got to get by the Knicks. They got to get by the Celtics, who still are clearly, to me, the best team in the league.
Agree.
But they now have a real shot, which 24 hours ago, 48 hours ago, they were a theoretical title contender. Now they are a bona fide title contender, albeit one with questions about health and depth.
And that was my question, is that Paul George move and that signing, like that Moses Malone signing, that if you're Philly, you're like, okay, now we can roll.
And that has to, again, all the pieces that have to happen. The Clippers having to say, you know what, we're not going to make this move. I said this earlier in the show. I'll say it again. There's 29 teams in the NBA that wouldn't have done this, that wouldn't have given Paul George 4 years, that wouldn't have taken him to 38 years old with $212 million as well committed to him. A player that, yes, last season played 74 games. Yes, has shown us in the postseason playoff P is a real thing. But still, at his age, in a league that keeps trying to get younger and keeps emphasizing not giving a ton of money to older players, there's only one. As Windy perfectly pointed out just a few seconds ago, it worked out because the Sixers needed exactly what he is, and he needed exactly what the Sixers had for him. The alternative to staying in LA, which would have been the easy thing to do, but you're taking less, and on principle, you believe you deserve more. He's been asking for this extension for more than a year. He has been thinking about getting him one more full max because he believes he is worth it. The Clippers weren't going there with him. He had to find another team that would, and he had that stare down with the Clippers. They eventually let him go, and now he's got a new opportunity and a chance to win a championship in Philadelphia.
Hey, Windy, when you look at these moves now, you look at the Sixers, they re-sign Tyrese Maxey to a nice fat deal. They go and get Paul George. All of a sudden, the Sixers are a power squad in the East. We already know the Celtics are the defending champions. We've seen what the Knicks can do. Let's not forget about the Milwaukee Bucks. They are still there in the atmosphere of the NBA. Is it the East? Is it the West? Which one is now the stronger conference?
Well, this is the one thing that the NBA was hoping to do when they put these new CBA rules in. They wanted to spread talent out a little bit away from some power centers. And it looks like one of the first results of this was to spread some talent to the Eastern Conference. The West lost one of their All-Stars, and he's moved east. Dame Lillard lost one of the West All-Stars. He moved east. So the power imbalance is moving a little bit east. But, I think Milwaukee would say we have a big three ourselves with Dame Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Chris Middleton. We just need them to be healthy. And that's essentially what Philly is going to ask for. Everybody looks good when they're healthy. This combination with all these teams requires health. And there was a period last year where the Clippers looked like they were going to win the Western Conference. They were there. They were playing the best basketball, and then they weren't able to stay healthy. Paul George knows this tale a lot. It's been him who's been hurt, or it's been Kawhi who's been hurt. So all of these moves, all you can do is set the table. You can't predict the health. The Celtics just had a run where they had general good health amongst their stars. Even Porzingis was able to be healthy when it really, really mattered. And so that's where we are. You can only do so much. We'll see who's healthy, 10 months from now, because that's when we'll see who the best team is going to be.
And Timmy B, I think you said it last hour. It's been a long time since this Northeast corridor has been really good.
One time in NBA history have the Celtics, Knicks, and Sixers won over 50 games in a season, 1981.
It's amazing.
Wow,
Yeah.
isn't that something?
That's amazing. East Coast bias, here we come.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's been a minute. Right?
And look, if these teams are healthy, again, and obviously all caveats aside, that's going to be hard to say, but they're arguably the three best teams in the league. Yeah. And they're all within a couple hours of each other. It sets up, as a basketball fan, up for some really awesome stuff. I mean, we just saw Knicks Sixers that was as much fun as I've had in the job covering that series, and it could be even better this time around.